Okay, got it. Okay, here we go.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Oh, you couldn't hear me before. You guys could speak up.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. It's all good. I'll start all over. Here we go.
I apologize.
It was like a ventriloquist. There was a puppet, someone with their hand in my head, like making me talk. My jokes were falling flat. Everything was going bad, and I was like, my humor. I was like, oh, no one's smiling at my jokes over here. Okay. So we're in Nissan. We're in the month of Nissan. I'll repeat my first bad joke. It's not the third largest Japanese automaker. It is the month of miracles. It's a time of complete transcendence from the natural order. There's other times a year where we very much focus on the natural order of things. We look at the sun, the moon, and we look at the different movements of the clouds and the beings and the angels and the higher levels and all these different things. But this is a time that is complete transcendence. This is a time of not giving over to the natural order of one iota, not giving over to even the natural cycles of the world. I'll tell you, so much so that one of the names of Passover is the festival of spring. It says, why is it called the festival of spring? You're not talking about natural. We're supposed to be supra-natural. Why is it called the festival of spring? Spring is a natural season, obviously. Well, interestingly enough, Passover has to occur in the springtime. So much so that when the lunar cycle and the solar cycle are not in confluence, and we add the extra month to the year, like we did this year, we had 2 Adars, we add the month before Passover in order to push Passover into the springtime, in order to jettison Passover another month forward to make sure it occurs in the heart of springtime, when the flowers are blooming, the birds are chirping, and it's getting warmer, the days are longer. Why? What does that do? Well, it says that God specifically took the Jewish people out of exile 3,335 years ago in order to say in your face, basically, to the Egyptians, to say in your face to idolatry and paganism. Because the rest of the world, they worship nature. They feel, oh, there's an equinox, there's something going on in the natural order of things, that the flowers are blooming, the animals are coming out of hibernation, everything is renewed, and that is the natural order. And most idolaters and pagans revere that time of year. They look at spring as the height of the powers of pagan energy. As Jews, we completely sublimate any kind of idolatry, of course. But God says, I'm taking you out at the height of the powers of the pagan people who you were subordinate to. Meaning the Egyptians, they actually worshiped the Nile River. The Nile River was a deity to them. And in the spring months, the Nile would overflow its banks, irrigate all the crops, provide the sustenance for the growing season that would last for a few months. And they looked at the month of spring as the time where their powers are at the highest. Their god, the Nile, was at its highest point. And the fact is, God says, that's when I'm taking you out as Jewish people. That's when I am removing you from your servitude and your slavery, because I'm showing the Egyptians in your face, like there's no way that any deity, any springtime, any equinox, any natural order can hold you back. So this is a great lesson to us that this year, especially when we have a leap year, when the solar calendar and the lunar calendar are not in synchronicity, and we have to add that extra month, we have to count another lunar cycle. We insert that specifically right before Passover to show the same thing that the Jewish people witnessed over 3,000 years ago, that the powers of nature do not control a Jew. We are not subordinate to the natural cycles. We use the natural cycles. We use the moon to count our lunar months. We use the year of the sun to count our solar year. We are very much in sync with nature, but we are not subordinate to nature. Nature does not determine the fate of a Jew. That's why we had our eclipse this last week, right? And we had an earthquake in New York and we had an eclipse, right? People are like, whoa, hey, what's going on here? Hashem, like, talk to me, baby. Wait, oh, you're talking now? Oh, am I really listening? So one of the things that's amazing, first we'll talk about the earthquake, because that was like, out of the field. The eclipse, the Jews have been predicting eclipses for the last, 2,500 years or more. We knew this eclipse was going to happen. Like it was on the docket. It was on the calendar. It was on your Google Calendar. Eclipse this time, this day, this hemisphere, this trajectory, totality over here, partial over there. We knew the whole thing was going on. We knew this. There was a rabbi at the close of the Second Temple period, and he calculated in perpetuity the movement of the sun and the stars. And in fact, when the moon would appear and when it would wax and wane to the minute, if not second, thousands of years ago. So we knew this was on the docket. So that was wild. But let's talk about the earthquake. The earthquake was like, whoa, oh my goodness. I happened to be praying. I was in 770. I got a late start that morning. I was davening in the Rebbe shul. I'm davening, and it's like, if you go to the main shul of 770, it's half above grade, half below grade. So it's not a full basement, but it's like, a little bit above ground, a little bit of. I felt nothing. I looked at my phone to turn it off while I pray. I turn my phone off. I see my wife says earthquake. I was like, what? Earthquake? What? I don't feel anything. So I was like, oh, I have my talus on my shoulder. I wasn't ready to daven yet. I go outside. They're like, oh yeah, earthquake, whatever. Guy walks out of the shul, same time. He goes, you felt that? I was like, I didn't feel it. He's like, my wife felt it. I was like, maybe only the women are feeling the earthquake right now. I don't know what's going on. But he didn't feel it either. But I have a theory about it, is that everyone I spoke to who was above grade and higher felt it more than those who were in a basement or on the ground floor. My wife was like half a floor up, but she felt it. And my daughters who were in school on like the fourth floor, they were like, whoa, it was very big by them. I don't know. But everyone I've spoken to that was like really high up felt it more than those who were low down. I don't know what that means. Maybe there's some grounding thing, energy. I don't have no idea. But I didn't feel it in 770. But so there's an amazing sikha of the Rebbe. There's a teaching of the Rebbe about earthquakes. And he says the purpose of an earthquake, you should not be scared of, number one. He says, don't be scared. I believe this was, I could be wrong, I have to look up the date, 1988, during that famous earthquake that hit California during the World Series. I could be wrong about that, but it was, I think this teaching of the Rebbe was from then. And the Rebbe says, you should not be scared of an earthquake. There's nothing to be scared of. It's not like Sanford and Son, the big one, Ma, it's coming. Oh, the big one, take me now. It's not like that. What is it? It's to shake off the dust. You go about your daily life. You go about your daily routine. And unfortunately, we could become sheep. We could become like, and just keep going about our lives and moving about every day-to-day habits. And there comes an earthquake and says, whoa, you thought you were on firm footing? You thought you were stable? You thought everything is understandable? You think everything is copacetic? And even the moon and the sun and the stars and the seasons, everything goes on. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. Your feet underneath you are moving and shaking. You gotta wake up a little bit. Shake off the dust and become a better person. Shake off the dust and become more connected to something very higher, something spiritual, something deeper. Do a mitzvah. Go outside yourself. Don't just get stuck in the mud as to who you were. And the Rebbe says the earthquake is not something to scare somebody or something that you should be like constantly frightened of or something like that. but it's a moment that you like give a little like shimmy, shimmy, shake, shimmy y'all, shimmy yay. Give me the microphone so I can take it away. Wu-Tang Clan shake to move away from where you were before and take out that sheep energy and transfer it into a mover, a shaker, a transformer, a changer, and be something greater. So that was the earth. That's the Rebbe's take on earthquakes, or at least the earthquake we just had was, thank God, it was only a 4 point whatever. I thought a 4 point something in New York would be crazy, but it wasn't that bad at all. I remember the
Okay.
last earthquake. Was it?
So Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. They had an earthquake, what, 6 point something in Taiwan, and like one building is like this, and only like it was not that bad. Like these people are
Trash can fell over.
it's amazing. Like there was the last earthquake I remember. I remember this so well because it was the first time my kids were very young. I took them camping. I love to camp. I love the outdoors. I took my kids camping, and I was like, we'll do a trial where I actually paid for a campground, which is against my like nature.
Same.
Campground. So I go all the way out east to like Wildwood Campground, which is actually really beautiful. It's on the water. There's cliffs. Really beautiful actually area. You have to pay to camp. So I was like, we'll pay. There'll be a bathroom. There'll be everything like taken care of. But we'll camp. We'll see how it goes. We'll do a fire. It was awesome. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. My car had car trouble like right before. So the insurance gave me a car, for like a temporary car, and it was a red PT Cruiser, like one of those like little fake hot rod cars, And I'm taking the kids camping in this PT Cruiser, this little like go-kart of a car, and I'm driving out east, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some like water. I go to I'm like, where do you get water? There's like a Walmart on the side. I see it. I never forget. And I'm driving this little PT Cruiser. I feel like, whoa. I'm like, oh, what was that? I was like, is this car messed up? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, well, that was crazy. It was like the whole like road like shifted. I was like, did I just break this car? Like, I don't know what's going on. Get out of the parking lot in the Walmart. They're like, Earth, did you feel that earthquake? I was like, oh, that's what that was. Like, I had no idea what it was. But that was the last time I felt an earthquake. One time I felt an earthquake when I was in high school, woke me up in the middle of the night in New York. But the earthquake is just to shake off the dust. So what about the eclipse? What about the eclipse? Maybe it's a sign. Maybe it's an omen. Maybe there's something deeper here for us. Well, there is something to be said about that. Our sages do say in one place that a lunar eclipse is a negative sign for the Jewish people, and a solar eclipse, like the one we just had, is a positive sign for the Jewish people, because the Jewish people are compared to the moon. Then the passage in the mystical medrash explains over there that all it really is to get us to change our ways. That if it's a good omen, be better. If it's a bad omen, change what's bad and make it better. Do tshuva, return to Hashem. So when you see signs in heaven, it's not to say that you're subordinate, again, to that natural order of what's going on. It's to teach you that there is somebody who's orchestrating this whole show. There's a God that orchestrates it all. And what he orchestrates does not control you. He controls you. And you have to open up yourself to be a better version of yourself, to be connected to that. Meaning to say, every culture in the world looks at nature and says, what do we learn from this on some level? And idolaters look at it and they worship it and they think, oh, it's going to happen this way, or yay, it's happening this way. And Jews, it's just a reminder. It's like a honeydew list. It's like saying, do tshuva, return to Hashem. Hashem's your creator. He created all this. He created this whole thing. And he's really the one who's the arbiter of your own reality. And if you embrace that, nothing affects you. You're not a subordinate. You're not a sheep. You're not just going with the flow. You're not just somebody who feels at bay to the forces around you, right? Like a lot of pagan rituals and a lot of, even modern, quote unquote, trust the science rituals that we have around us are very much trying to explain our universe, some of which rightfully so, and trying to find out the best causality for, to heal our problems, to make a better world. But a lot of it also is that we feel very at bay to the forces around us. We feel very nervous and have anxiety about a world that we don't understand. And we seek to understand it. We seek to try and make sense of a world that sometimes seems chaotic or sometimes seems beyond us. But really what these events teach us is we transcend all of it. We literally transcend all of it. If our ducks are in a row, if we're doing what we're supposed to do, if we're connected to the source of what creates all of that. And that is essentially what brings us to the month we're in right now of Nisan, the month of miracles. Not only are we not subordinate to the natural order of things, but we're actually transcendent on them in that we become someone who lives with transcendence on a daily basis. I literally felt the energy when going from Adar to Nisan. And I feel it every year, and I'm not always cognizant of the energy. I feel it. And then Pesach is here already, and I'm like, oh, that's what that was? But this year, I felt it like right away. I felt what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, and I felt it in my daily life. I felt like there was just something about my day where my schedule, my life, my involvements were lighter. We're more attuned to something greater. Even if they were the same things I did before, like, even if they were normative behavior, if they were like habits or things that I do every day, everything became involved like a little bit, like a hecher from Teva, as they say in Yiddish, higher than nature, a little, a tefach hecher, as they say, a handbreadth higher than the natural order, just a little bit. And I think the goal is as the month progresses, especially as we get towards Pesach literally means jumping. I don't know if everyone knows that. Pesach, everyone thinks means like opening, or Pesach means to jump. Not just a tefach hecher, not just a handbreadth higher, but a complete jumping. I'll explain it this way. According to Kabbalah, according to Jewish mysticism, and as is really outlined in Chassidus, the fifth Chabad Rebbe has an amazingly deep discourse. And there he talks about a person who wants to become higher, who wants to elevate themselves, who wants to transcend, who wants to become better. Whether it's somebody who's low and wants to dig themselves out, or whether someone who's already high and wants to ascend to high, lofty spiritual levels and trend and really, really blast off. He says over there an amazing thing. There's two ways to become higher. One is Va'al Seder V'Adroga, which means in an orderly, measured fashion. And the other is jumping. Each one has its advantages. The one who has the order and the measure is almost like walking up a staircase. Each step is the same size as the step before it, and each step that's about to come is another step higher. And steps enable a person, unlike if you're like on a trail where steps are, I find pretty annoying, especially because they're like weirdly made, and like they're like each step is like 3 feet long, and you're like, step, how do I I'd rather just walk up a mountain than go up the steps, Like
Seriously.
I don't get it. I guess it's for like erosion or something, but we'll give those kids making minimum wage who are doing the trails like a little pass there. But,
Yeah.
I don't like the stairs, but so the stairs are there to provide a way up. They show you the way. They give you measure. You can quantitatively see where you came from. Say, this is where I came from. This is where I'm going. And so you have a quantitative barometer of like where you're holding, which is very, very healthy, which is very, very stabilizing, which is very, very powerful also, especially if you're going up. One of the things we miss in today's day and age, I think, is that stability does not mean becoming like bougie and like staying the same way and staying in the same plane. Stability means you're going up. You can't be, if you're holding somewhere, if you're in a holding pattern, you're really going down. There's no question
Right.
about it. The previous Rebbe actually said if today isn't better than yesterday, it's worse. It's not the same. It's only the same. The same. The same. I tell my kids, we don't use the N word in our family. Normal. We don't use the normal word. That's our bad word. It's not the same. So steps give you that stability, positive stability, not lazy stability, not what's the word? Not passive stability,
Stagnant.
not stagnation. That's right. Not stagnant. Not stagnant. It's a stability based on something else that you're growing on. This is like a stable growth. I'm a human being, and by nature, I grow. Like the Talmud says, he who has 100 wants 101. Who has 101 wants 200. This is the nature of human beings. Obviously, we want the right things. We don't just we're not money hungry or power hungry or whatever hungry people. Where we want the right things. If it's attuned the right way, it's very positive. But that staircase, like a metaphor, is very, very positive because it gives us a way to measure ourselves. And we should constantly go up and up and up. And we see where we came from. We see where we're going. We see what it takes to get to the next level. And then we have jumping. Jumping is very dangerous. Jumping could mean you never land. Jumping could also mean you maybe jumped off and the substrate, the place where you jump from, could be very weak and tenuous. You lose your footing very easily. And when a person jumps, they have to make sure they're on very firm footing. They have to make sure that they're very stable already. They have to make sure that they know where they're going to, even though it's like kind of beyond and transcendent. There has to be a goal to the jump. Just jumping for the sake of jumping is insanity. It's like Daffy Duck when he's like just jumping around. Woo! He's jumping and jumping. It doesn't do anything. He's just jumping. But a person who jumps with a conviction to something higher, to a completely transcendent reality, a person who says, I'm not jumping because I want to do it, but I'm jumping for that unknown, that higher power. I'm jumping towards Hashem. They land in a very high place. They land in a in a place where it's almost unrecognizable that person is that person before. The famous way of doing tshuva, of returning to Hashem, that a person can reach so deeply within their soul and do such tshuva, return to Hashem to such a degree that they become irrecognizable to who they were before. Like, meaning to say, a guy who is not religious, he was religious maybe, and then he starts eating shellfish, and he starts cheating on his wife, and he starts cheating on his taxes, and he starts stealing, and he starts doing all kinds of wrong things, and he kind of doesn't keep Shabbos anymore, and he gives it up. And then instead of Yosef, he becomes Joe. And then Joe is Joe now. Joe is not Yosef anymore. Joe's Joe. But Joe can somehow do tshuva. He could jump. Joe could do tshuva to such an extent that he's no longer Joe anymore. To his friends, to his colleagues, to his coworkers, to his mistress, whoever there is out there, Joe can become Yosef. Joe can become Yosef, irrecognizable. He completely can transcend his own identity, which is almost an impossibility in the physical world. But in the spiritual, we know that that's a possibility. In the spiritual, we know that a person can achieve such heights, can jump and land in such a place where they're so much higher, they're so much more elevated, that their previous life, their previous attitudes, their previous behaviors no longer affect them. You know, we're not just the sum of a bunch of experiences that we've had. We're not like Nietzscheists, or we're not like Kantian philosophers. we're not just the sum of life experience. We're not the totality of just our like subatomic particles that are bouncing around within ourselves that make us who we are. No, no, no. We have a spirit, we have a nefesh, we have a neshama, we have a soul that creates an ability for us to completely change our composition of who we are. And that is the jumping. That's the jumping that's there. So just jumping and doing something flippant is very chaotic, and it doesn't stay, it doesn't last, it's not permanent. It might feel good the first second, but after that, we lose it. But if a person jumps to such an extent where they have conviction and they say, Hashem, you're going to catch me wherever I land. Hashem, you're going to take me, and I'm going to accept, based on my conviction, that you're going to make me land in a safe place, in a better place, and that I'm able to follow you in my jump. This is a tremendous level. So the Rebbe Rashab, in this discourse based on Kabbalah, he actually explains that all of us go through both of these movements along these two different trajectories, and we flip between them often in our lives. We go between these two trajectories. A healthy person, a well-adjusted spiritual person, goes between these two trajectories constantly throughout their lives. The question is, are they cognizant of where they're supposed to be? And that's the hard part. They're cognizant of which path to take. In the words of Stairway to Heaven, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, you don't know. And the fact is, as a Jew, Hashem gives us this amazing capacity to follow both ways. You know, people oftentimes, I was today, I had to do Passover shopping. So, you know, you see I was walking out of a store and I forgot to kiss the mezuzah on the way out. And there's a bus stop, and there's Jews and non-Jews standing by the bus stop. They're waiting about, looking at their phones, looking around. And as I'm looking at the bus stop, I see that I forgot to kiss the mezuzah on the way out of the store. So I literally had the bag in my hand, and I turn around to kiss the mezuzah, and a guy, a young black kid, sees me do it, and just was like, you know, what? And I just kiss the mezuzah, and I walk out, touch the mezuzah, and walk out. So I'm like, what is he thinking? What is he thinking? It wasn't a negative experience, it was positive. And I said, what is he thinking? I was like, right, thinks, you know, this is something Jews do. What is that? It probably struck him that this guy holding a bag goes out of his way to turn around and walk a step back, 2 steps back, and touch the mezuzah and walk out. He thinks it's superstition, who knows what. It's very interesting. You could look at religious Jews and say, you all look the same. You all wear black yarmulkes and white shirts and black pants and tzitzis and put the tefillin on, daven 3 times a day, the same thing. He's very regimented. He's very habitual. It can even seem like sheep, you know? It can seem like, you're just doing what the grand Rebbe tells you to do. Or you're telling what God says to do, and you're not following your own thing. But each person who follows that, they're obviously on the staircase method. They're on the orderly method. But what's going on inside them is every day should be a jump. Every day should be an adventure. If my davening in the morning, if my prayers in the morning are the same prayers I prayed yesterday, it wasn't a good prayer. It wasn't a good day. It wasn't a good prayer service for me. I didn't feel it. Judaism is not a spectator sport. Sometimes it looks like a spectator sport because everybody's like wearing the same uniform and we're all looking at each other. And it's like, oh, there's a guy up there, there's a guy back here. The fact of the matter is that every day there should be both movements going on. There should be a movement of transcendence that is measured and that is according to the code of Jewish law, strictly and abiding by what the Torah says, black and white, sort of say. But then there is this other movement that takes into account the higher level of jumping. And the jumping does not have to look wild or chaotic. It doesn't mean tomorrow I'm going to have blue hair, or tomorrow I'm going to, shave off half my beard, like I did in college. And I'm not. It doesn't have to be a radical change that is superficially represented in the way I look or the way I behave. The jumping is what's going on in here. The jumping is what's going on in here. The jumping is an internal jump. That's a healthy jumping. That's a healthy propelling to a higher level. And it's not immediately discernible to anybody else. But then again, if a person's in such a place where they're low, if a person's in such a place where they're not wearing their Yiddishkeit, as they say, on their sleeve, their jump has to be distinguishable externally because they're not wearing it on their sleeve. If you're not wearing it on your sleeve, you got to at least wear it on your sleeve and wear your jump on your sleeve. Like paratrooper, you got the bars, you got to get your bars. You have to have that. I never forget this. I was by a Shabbos table right after I became religious, and there was like all different kinds of Jews at the table. There was a little hippie girl, and she's like, I never liked the penguin suit. I was like, the penguin suit? What's the penguin suit? She's like, I'm like, no. I was like, oh, okay, I wear a white shirt and black pants. That's what you call the penguin suit. I was like, I get it now. Okay, I like it, the penguin suit. You don't like that. I was like, I didn't like it either. I like the suit. I never thought. My father to this day teases me that I wear a suit every day. I wear a long jacket and I wear a suit jacket. He says, you were so anti authoritarian. You were so rebellious. Never. You said I never wear a suit like you, Dad. I'll never wear a suit like you. And now I wear a suit every day. But the thing is, it's like really true. My father's an attorney. My father used to take me to my baseball games and sometimes wear a suit. He's like, you can go anywhere in a suit. You can't go anywhere in jeans. That was my father. So that is my father. But now he dresses more like everyone's in corporate casual, which is, I think, worse than a suit. Give me a suit over khakis any day. But the point is, everyone's like a casual Friday. Like, oh my goodness, what is this? Look like an unmade bed. Anyway, the point is that the suit looks like the staircase, or even worse, it looks like sheep. But the point of it really is that you're representative of a letter of the Torah. A Torah is white fire with black fire written on top of it. That is what the Torah looks like. The Kabbalist called the Torah two fires. One fire of black, one fire of white. The black fire seared on the white fire. And when a Jew dresses with a white shirt, a black yarmulke, black dark pants, dark suit, whatever it is, we're representative of a letter that's on fire. It's not a letter that's stagnant. If you look at Hebrew letters, they look like flames. You ever notice that? They're like, you're an artist, Aaron? It's like, you look at the Hebrew letters, they're like flames. They're mamish flames. Yud is a little spark.
Right
the lamed is beautifully like a curving fire with a breeze blowing at its front. It's like these are deep energy, divine energies of fire. And so if you look at it superficially, it's a penguin suit. You're right. But if you look at the depth, what's going on externally and internally, and understanding it, you understand that a Jew is constantly in fuego. What's going on inside there? He's an individual, just not defined by the chaos of the world around us, just not defined by the status quo of everybody else dressing the same way. One of the things is like being rebellious. You're rebellious like the other guy's rebellious. In America, we rejoice in rebellion. Anybody who rebels, there's another guy rebelling the same way you rebel. And anyone who follows the party line, for sure, there's another like billion people following the party line. So a Jew follows Hashem's line and is an individual in that. And the individuality is not expressed by superficial behaviors, expressed by what's going on in here. When the Neshama comes Passover, comes the month of Nisan, and Hashem says, you need to remember that. It's not enough just to follow the daily regimen of being a Jew. You have to live with miracles. You have to live with miracles to such an extent that in 14 days, you're going to have a Passover Seder. And you're going to do all these wacky things that are all very, very clearly defined by measure. This much matzah, this much chareses, this much wine, this many cups of wine. All these things are crazy measure, but they make no sense whatsoever. And if someone saw them, even a Jew would say, what is that? Like, there's a very cursory connection to the exodus from Egypt. Like, what does 4 cups of wine have to do with Exodus? What is eating? Like, all these things are like weird representations. They make literally, I'll be honest, no sense. There's no sense. It's insane. But we do them to exhibit something that is nonsensical, that is supranatural and supra-rational. It's not rational. It's not a rational behavior. And we do those things in order to transcend our own limitations. Anybody who attends a Passover Seder and leaves just full and unchanged has not attended a Passover Seder. The Passover Seder has to be something that is completely experiential and transcendent. You cannot be the same person before and after a Passover Seder. The Passover Seder is a 15-step program to leaving your boundaries behind. And Hashem gives us this whole amazing rubric of the Passover Seder. And even before the Passover Seder, the getting ready for Passover, the getting rid of the chametz, the burning the chametz, the baking the matzahs, all of these things are really wild, all mystical, deep traditions, and a lot of them laws, that are so inane and so crazy, they can only be supernatural. Like, no rabbi could have made this stuff up. It's like ridiculous. Like, it literally is. Like, a rabbi could have made up a shofar. Shofar, like, okay, like shofar, so good. Like, I get it. You take a ram horn, it's pointy at one end, it's wide at the other end, it's blasted out. It sounds like a cry, it sounds like an animal, it sounds like a sheep. It calls me out, it wakes me up. I'm good. That's great. I love it. I'm in. Rosh Hashanah makes sense. Passover is not that way. Passover is whacked out. It's totally a whack reality. In fact, it's so whacked out, the Arizal, one of the foremost Kabbalists, he said a crazy thing. He says that if you want to make up your own customs on Passover, you can do so. I mean, say, according to Jewish law, you're not allowed to make up your own customs. You can't be like, from now on, tefillin are not black, they're red. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to make up your own customs. You're not allowed to add in Jewish law, and you're not allowed to take away Jewish law. You have to follow what Jewish law says. But the Arizal, the foremost Kabbalist of all time, he says if you want to make up your own customs for Pesach in order to get rid of chametz, go ahead. Sky's the limit. Go meshugane. Go crazy. Be meshugs. Go crazy. Go, like, do whatever it takes. Obviously, that's within the somewhat of the realm, you don't want to get a divorce before Pesach from your wife. You want to make sure that, everyone's okay. And the kids are, well adjusted, But the point is, what is he saying? Chametz, leaven on Pesach is so evil, is so bad, is so horrific. Whatever it takes to jump away from it, it's like flaming fire that's going to burn. Get rid of it. Move away from it. Go as far away as you can. Make up your own stuff. Make up your own rules and regulations to get rid of it. And he says it because he realizes the power of chametz. I mean, chametz is weird, right? 358 days a year, 57 days a year, chametz is fine. You want to eat bread, you want to eat pretzels, you want to drink beer, you want to whatever, go ahead. 8 days a year, what was kosher is now completely prohibited according to Jewish law, according to Torah, biblical law, rabbinic law, every law in the book. So much so that if you have a vessel, a cup, that was used with chametz that's hot and it seeps in, the vessel itself cannot be in your possession over Passover. And you want to make up laws and customs to remove that from your presence, go ahead, because it's so bad. So what does chametz represent? Chametz represents ego, self-inflation, self-aggrandizement. You thinking you know what you're supposed to do. The I, the ich, as they say in Yiddish. The animal inclination, the negative inclinations that we have that hold us back from being the best of ourselves. The inflated ego. Like matzah's flat, chametz, leaven rises. The rest of the year, you need to have an ego, a healthy ego. It's good. It's okay. We're not like Easterners who somehow try and find a void and end up falling asleep in their yoga pants. That's not who we are. As Jews, a healthy ego 357 days a year is a very good thing. It's good to have self-worth, a value, self-awareness, a positive self-image. That's our basis the rest of the year for our steps. That's the basis of who we are. That's stable. Be stable. Can't jump all the time. Need steps. That's 357 days a year. Come the 8 days of Pesach, jump. Jump away from that. That's flame fire. It's evil incarnate during 8 days of Pesach. Time to jump. Jump away from evil and jump towards good. Pesach is that jumping. Pesach says, don't even think about yourself anymore. Don't even think about even good self-actualization, self-refinement, self-help, self-betterment. All that is, it's out the window for Passover. Passover is, you're on Hashem's time. Jump. He's got your back. He's got you. He's totally got you. Just like the Jewish people who left Egypt. What did they do? The world's greatest world power, the Egyptians, held them in slavery for generations. And then they just walked out without a shot being fired, without a dog barking. Hundreds of thousands of people crossed this border from slavery to freedom because Hashem sent Moses and told them to do so. It's a jump. Looks like a walk. It's a jump. There was no there was no UN. There was no Emancipation Proclamation. There was no CNN and MSNBC. There's no commentary. There's no Fox News. Thank God. For all the lack of all these institutions. The point is that they literally just did it, not knowing what was on the other side, really. They knew they were supposed to go to Israel. They knew they were getting a Torah. What that looked like, they had no idea. No idea. They jumped. They literally jumped. And now, National Geographic tries to explain the splitting of the sea as an algae bloom, and the exodus from Egypt was some political drama that happened. Like El Nino happened, and the Jews left, and all of a sudden, they jumped. Stop trying to make sense of it. You jump. Stop trying to make sense of it. Stop thinking so much. Just do it. Jump. This is what the Jews did. This is what Nisan is. Miracles. We're living with miracles. And so when we come to this month, we just have to keep going, keep doing it. Stop thinking. Just do it. Just move forward through it. Take that plunge. Take that plunge into something that's unknown. And that unknown thing has to be towards something that's higher. All you have to know is it's higher. Really, essentially. All you have to know that you're going towards something greater. Obviously not something radical or chaotic. Something that has a focus, has an attunement. Meaning, when they left Egypt, it wasn't just like, well, now we're in the desert. What do we do next? They were like, Hashem's got our back. Whatever Hashem has next, that's what we're in for. That's what we're in for. They weren't like, oh, now we're in the desert, It's time to like, chill out in the desert, have like a Burning Man festival and just chill and be like, whatever. They were like, no, we're in this for Hashem. We did this for Hashem, not because we like to be free. We weren't like, yay, we like to be free. Of course they like to be free. Who doesn't like to be free? What did they do it for? They did it for Hashem. It wasn't specifically for their freedom. It was for their redemption. It was for a liberation in order to go towards a redemption. It went from exile to redemption. If they're just free from exile, what is it worth? What is it worth? We see people today, this day and age. We live in America, supposedly the freest, the land, the home of the brave, land of the free. Thank God. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of, yeah, great, awesome. Big fan of freedom. Absolutely. 110%. But what are we doing with it? Oh, let me get a bigger car. Let me get a bigger house. Or let me go live in the woods and do whatever I want to do. Like, what are we doing with our freedom? Freedom is a responsibility. It's not a privilege. It's something great. If we're not doing something higher with our freedom, we don't have a freedom from religion. We have freedom of religion. What are we doing with that freedom? Do we exercise our freedoms we have? Oh, I vote. Really? That's it? Do you do it? You think it's a fact? You should vote. But it's not defining your freedoms of who you are. Your freedom for suffrage is a minor freedom that you have as an American. Your freedom of religion. Your freedom of speech. Are you speaking? Are you using it? Your freedom of religion. Are you being religious? Are you really pursuing, I don't know, happiness, but meaning in your life? Happiness? Is there a pursuit, or is it just like, I've reached this far. I got this far. I've made it. The Jews who left Egypt were not just happy being free people. There was a purpose. There's a goal. And one of the things that distinguishes Judaism from every other religion, philosophy, et cetera, is we're goal-oriented. We're very goal-oriented. We believe Mashiach is going to come. We're going to go from slavery to freedom. We're going to go from exile to redemption. And this is not something that is just for the sake of the freedom itself. There's a goal to make the world a dwelling place for Hashem. Our goal is to make the world a dwelling place for Hashem in such a way that it reflects the divine ideal. It's not like the goal of going to heaven. It's not the goal of, getting a bigger house, a bigger car, a bigger this, a bigger that, more power. It's not even the goal of saying, I can do whatever I want. That's not a real higher goal. The goal has to be to attain something. I hate the word achievement, generally speaking, but if you want to use it, you can. Achieve a higher reality. Embrace a higher reality. We could use that better, maybe. Embrace Hashem. Embrace the miracles that are in store for you. Realize that He's the one who's got your back as you jump. And when we jump, it's towards something. There's a purpose. There's a goal. There's a matara. There's a pointed place we're going. And we enter this month of Nisan, and we see the world, you could definitely use miracles. You could definitely use more miracles and more miracles and more miracles. I'll leave you with one last story I heard from Nisan Mengel. Nisan Mengel, his name is Nisan, the same as the month. Nisan Mengel, it's worth it if you want to Google him. He's a Holocaust survivor. He literally was on the in Auschwitz. He was literally on the trail that they schlepped them between each camp to try and kill them as they walked through the snow and ice in frigid winter. I forget the name of it. And he tells his story, and he tells it very vividly. He just went back to Auschwitz, I think, 2 years ago. He's in his 80s, 90s. Should have long years, should be healthy. And he's an amazing speaker. It's worth it. On Torah Cafe, there's some of his great lectures there. And Nisa Mengel speaks. He's a brilliant Torah scholar, a brilliant rabbi himself, brilliant mystic. He translated part of the Tanya at the Rebbe's request. Amazing man. And Nisa Mengele, I'm not going to give away all his stories because you should hear it from him, not from me. One of the things that's amazing is one of the things he had, his name is Nisan. It begins with a nun and ends with a nun, Nisan. Nisan, the two nuns in Nisan represent Nisim Niflaos, like I began the talk tonight. That means miracles and wonders. We can give a whole nother class on the difference between a miracle and a wonder. Wonders are a higher level. But what happened was he was in this march where they literally just tried to like kill people through starvation and exposure to the elements in Eastern European winter. And it's cheaper than bullets, or gas or whatever, God forbid us. And one morning he wakes up and he sees everyone next to him is dead. And he himself is freezing beyond freezing. And he's freezing and he has to walk. If they don't walk, he's shot. Walk. He's lagging behind. All of a sudden, SS officer comes from behind and gives him his jacket from his uniform. A Nazi gives him his jacket. You know what that is? He doesn't have a jacket now. All of a sudden, he remembers his dream. In his dream, he saw two nuns. And he remembered in the Gemara, in the Talmud, over 2,000 years old, the debates of the rabbis says that if someone sees two nuns in a dream, they're going to see miracles that day. He sees the two nuns in his name, and he sees the two nuns. He says the first miracle was he woke up. The second miracle was he got the jacket. The SS officer he never saw again. And which is weird because if you think about it, it wasn't like they replenished their troops at this point. You live with these people, God forbid us. I mean, I can't imagine the horrors. But he never saw him again. He says maybe it's Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Navi, came to him, saved his life. He's like, but why me? I woke up next to dead people that morning. I got a jacket so I could walk the next day. I held that jacket for, I think he says I kept that jacket for a long time. But we have to live with Nisan Niflais. We have to live with miracles and wonders. And that each one of us, thank God they're not in such a horrific situation as Nisan Mengel, but we have to live with the miracles and wonders also. The miracles and wonders we have around us that are constant and consistent in our lives, if we just meditate and think for a second about what we have in our lives, the miracles and the wonders that we see on the daily basis are unbelievable, out of this world. The protection, the security, the love, the feelings, the availability of freedoms that we do have. These are miracles. These are real. And as we approach the era of Mashiach, we're about to see Mashiach now, these wonders and miracles that we see, hopefully not only on our personal level, but on a global level, become more and more readily apparent to us. Everything Hashem does is for ultimately the good. And the miracles that we see in the world around us, we could listen to the news and we could feel depressed. We could doom scroll social media and also feel depressed and go like this all day. Feel depressed also. It'd be also. Where are we getting our information from? We can't front with revelation, son. This is what we are. This is who we are as Jews. We have a Torah and we have miracles that are surrounding us constantly. And this month should be a month filled with Nisan Niflai's wondrous miracles. As it says, the famous pasuk in the Torah, just like the days of Egypt, when Mashiach comes, I will again show you wonders. What do you mean again show you wonders? The wonders that we'll see when Mashiach comes will completely blow out of the water the miracles of Egypt. Blow out of the water. How could Mashiach come in such a world? That's a miracle. How could Mashiach bring all the Jews and the world really to a utopian reality, it's a miracle. We'll see it. It's happening. We have to open our eyes. One final note is my name has two nuns also. Hanan. Two nuns. So I try and live with it. I try and actualize it. And if I can just share my miracles and wonders with you, I appreciate you letting me do so. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing Shabbos, an amazing week. A kosher and Freichen Pesach. Next week, God willing, will be our last class before Pesach, because Pesach is coming. And next week, hopefully, we will have a class as well. Hopefully Thursday. I might start, being that the summer months, my schedule is changing. I might, for those of you who are tuning on Zoom or tuning on regular on Facebook, I might switch the day of the week. So if I do so, I will inform Noah, Genevieve, and Aaron, and anybody else, and some of my other regulars who have come to my class, as well as on Facebook. I'll put it out there as well. I will be in touch with all of you individually if I do end up changing the schedule going forward. But we will have one more class for sure, before Pesach, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how we're insane for miracles. Have a wonderful night. All the love. Mashiach now.
Mashiach now.
Thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next week, God willing.
Aloha.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure. Take care, guys. Be well.
Thanks.
All the love.